I'm afraid of us leaving a world worse off for our children than the one we inherited.
So when I see him say he the justice fighter, man, I believe he like Superman, and he like Superman to me.
Gerald is like a knight in shining armor. He made very good decisions on what we need to do, how we need to attack the situation, and how we need to move.
So Renitta, you go very hard for criminal justice reform. It seems to be a passion of yours. Why is that?
Yes, well, as a state representative, it is a passion for me working on criminal justice reform issues. And the reason, just like with a lot of other policies and issues, is because my own personal experience with these issues actually informs my policy making. And so when you think about criminal justice reform, I myself found out just how easily a person can be ensnared in the criminal justice system for little to no reason, and how easily it can derail your life. So 20 years ago, when I was in college, I was a college student at the University of Florida, and I was working to pay tuition, to pay rent. I mean, it's kind of tough going to classes and also trying to have a job at the same time. And I know a lot of people know what I'm talking about because, this is the regular experience of any college student today. I actually went to work. I was working as a server at the time. Came home and there was a voicemail on my answer machine from the Alachua County Sheriff's Department. Mm-hmm. So, I nearly had a heart attack because in my life, I've never been arrested for anything. I have never been convicted of a crime. I've never even had to go to court over anything in my life. So imagine coming home and getting a voicemail from the Sheriff's Department saying, Miss Shannon, you have bounced 2 checks and we need you to come down and pay for those checks. And if you don't, we will issue a warrant for your arrest.
And so the sheriff called you and basically summoned you to come down.
Correct. The sheriff basically gave me an opportunity to pay for 2 checks that it bounced that I didn't even know it bounced. Okay. I had not had any communication from the retailer, so I didn't even know that these checks had bounced, which, I'm sure they probably did try to contact me, but college students, I know I moved every year in college just chasing affordable rent. So it's really, difficult. Most college students, it's difficult to keep consistent contact information. So the sheriff, I think, did me a favor by leaving me a voicemail and giving me an opportunity to clear up the checks. So when I got the voicemail, my heart sank, but then I, picked my heart up off the floor and I immediately called the sheriff's office back and I said, hey, what is this about? Because I don't know of any checks that I've got that have bounced. Like, what is this about? And so the sheriff said, listen, it's not a huge deal, but you've got 2 checks that bounced at a supermarket. The total of the 2 checks is $120 and you need to clear this up. You need to go and pay for the checks and pay for the fees. And then you bring that proof to court and we'll drop the issue. So I was really thankful that that's all it would take to clear it up. So I immediately got with the retailer. I paid for the checks, and then I took the proof of payment to the courthouse, and the courthouse said, okay, the issue is dropped. You won't even have to go to court over it. We've got proof that you've paid it. Consider this a done deal. So, I was just really grateful that I had that opportunity to clear it up. But that was 20 years ago. And so for me, an experience like that 20 years ago, I think back to, well, what would have happened if I had not gotten that message from the sheriff's office?
Yeah, what if you had been in Georgia where something like that does not happen? They just issue a warrant and you're arrested, you're fingerprinted, and you're brought before a court.
That's right. And that easily could have happened to me. I don't know anybody who has not bounced a check in their life. And so, what happened with me could have happened to anybody. And I'm just thankful that the Alachua County Sheriff's Department reached out to me and gave me an opportunity to clear it up. But I consistently think about, well, what would have happened had I not received that message? Had the sheriff's office had the wrong contact information, I likely would have had a warrant issued for my arrest. And I likely would have been arrested one day, pulled over for a traffic stop or anything. The point is that really could have derailed my life. After graduating college, I ended up working for financial services companies and also pharmaceutical and medical device companies. And a lot of people don't know this, but those companies have the strictest of background checks. If you have been convicted of fraud or anything having to do with financial crimes, they will not hire you because they don't feel like it's worth the risk to their clients to hire somebody who could potentially commit fraud while they are an employee. The other thing with these companies is that even if they even look at the amount of debt that you have. If you have too much debt, they won't hire you because, again, they are worried that, your high level of debt will make it to where you may be persuaded to, in the case of a pharmaceutical company, sell their drugs in order to pay, your debts. Or in the case of a financial services company, they are concerned that if you have such, a crushing debt, you might be tempted to do something with clients' clients' tax information to cure your situation. And so but the thing is that companies like that have really good jobs, and those really great jobs have afforded me a good life. So I just think about, what if that check situation would not have worked out the way that it did? What if I had not had an opportunity to clear it up? What if I had actually been convicted of writing worthless checks?
But
I likely would not have had the jobs that I've had in my life.
Yeah, but the good part of it was you were not arrested, you weren't even accused, you weren't indicted, you didn't have to go to trial. None of those things happened.
Right.
Because of the sheriff's department deciding to call you, you making payment to the retailer, and you moving on with your life.
That's
so
right.
I mean, it's a testament to how real reform can happen if the right actors in the system do the right thing.
That's right. And so the point you made earlier about how Georgia, and you were pretty surprised to hear that the sheriff called me and gave me an opportunity to clear it up. I mean, to your point, those are the types of reforms that, really can make the difference in a person's life. Because even though I was never convicted of anything, even today, I still, if I'm running a background check on myself, like for example, the third-party internet checks, background checks that you can easily pay for, I can still see where there were 2 charges for worthless checks. And this happened 20 years ago.
But here's a part that I guess as an attorney here in Georgia that makes me concerned. There were never 2 charges because you weren't arrested, you weren't issued a citation, you weren't accused, you weren't indicted, you didn't have to answer to any formal charges. So my question is, why in Florida are they even allowed to put that on a third party kind of background search when it's not accurate to what actually happened? You weren't charged.
Well, so I think that the reason, so number one, because it was 2 checks, I guess each check carries a charge. So it was this one retailer and it was 2 checks. The checks total $120, which on a side note, to me, again, really informs my policy making, because $120 is enough to take away a person's freedom. I mean, that is outrageous. But so I think that when you're talking about the third party background check services, again, what was explained to me actually by the sheriff's office when I asked them about this was that third-party background check companies make profit by keeping things alive on a person's record. So even though I could go and work for a financial services company and they could see my background, I could go and work for a pharmaceutical and medical device company as I have before being elected, and they could see my background. They run real background checks where they actually look at things that they look at the full scope of things, and they actually look at what happened with the case. Internet background check companies keep information alive so that if there's a hit or anything that comes up, then they can prompt people to pay to view that record. So that's really the difference. Yeah. So that's the reason why I'm working on a bill now to deal with what type of information can be listed on a third-party background check, because this really could have had larger ramifications. People are easily discriminated against for housing because of these background check services, which notoriously have inaccurate information. People could be turned down for a job. I have met constituents who have told me of situations where they have actually been arrested for things. They have a mugshot on the internet, but then they later on went to court and they were found not guilty, but they can't get the mugshot off the internet. Yeah. So again, these are all the reasons why I go so hard on criminal justice reform issues, because I realize that what happened to me, bouncing a check, could have happened to anybody. And the only difference is I was given a chance to clear it up and take care of it. But for the person who, like you said, living in Georgia, who doesn't have that opportunity, you're likely to end up with a conviction or at least have to appear in court.
Yeah, and I just think based on that situation, I think that was more akin to a civil case, because of course in Georgia you have to have the intent to defraud, and that's why they charge people in this state. So I'm just glad that worked out for you. Still kind of confused why the third party background people were even allowed legally to do that, because in that case, based on my understanding of the law, you weren't charged. You weren't cited. You weren't accused. You sure weren't convicted. So it sounds like a civil issue, and I'm glad it was able to be resolved.